The courtroom fell silent. No one moved. No one breathed. The judge's gavel, gripped tightly in his hand, remained frozen midair. His mouth was slightly open, his eyes locked onto the young girl standing at the defense table. The prosecutor, a man known for his sharp tongue and ruthless questioning, was sitting back in his chair, staring at the teenager as if he had just seen a ghost. But the most shocking reaction of all came from the jury. A few of them exchanged glances, their faces pale, as if they couldn't believe what they had just heard. One juror, an older woman with silver hair, even gasped aloud, her hands clutching the arms of her chair. Standing in the middle of it all was the 17-year-old girl who had just delivered the most unexpected, jaw-dropping defense anyone in that courtroom had ever heard. Her hands were steady. Her voice was calm. And yet, what she had just said had left an entire room of legal professionals, people with years of experience, completely speechless. The judge finally blinked, lowering his gavel slightly. His voice, usually firm and commanding, came out softer than before. "Miss Brooks," he said, addressing the teenage lawyer. Are you telling me that?" Before he could finish his sentence, a loud commotion erupted from the back of the courtroom. Someone had just entered, and from the way the bailiff rushed toward them, it was clear. Something big was about to happen. Months earlier, in a quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of Chicago, 17-year-old Olivia Brooks sat on the floor of her small bedroom, surrounded by thick law books, legal pads, and stacks of notes. The clock on her nightstand read 2:34 a.m. She was supposed to be asleep. Most high school seniors at her school would be. But Olivia was different. She had never been like the others. While other kids were worried about prom, college applications, and social media, Olivia spent her time buried in books about the legal system. She studied case law, watched courtroom trials online, and even practiced giving arguments in front of her bedroom mirror. Her mother, a nurse who worked double shifts to support them, didn't understand it. "Olivia, honey, why don't you go outside? Meet some friends? Do something fun?" But Olivia would just smile and shake her head. "This is fun for me, Mom." She had one dream, to become a lawyer. Not when she was older. Not after law school. Now, it wasn't just a dream. It was an obsession. And then, one day, she saw something that would change her life forever. It happened on a cold December afternoon. Olivia had just finished tutoring a younger student at the library when she stepped outside and saw a crowd gathered near the street. Curious, she pushed through the people and saw a man. Homeless, thin, wearing a tattered coat, being handcuffed by two police officers. The man's face was bruised, his lip bleeding. A store owner stood nearby, pointing at him angrily. "He stole from my shop. I saw him." The officers didn't ask questions. They didn't hesitate. "You have the right to remain silent," one of them began. Olivia frowned. Something didn't feel right. The homeless man wasn't fighting back. He wasn't yelling or cursing. He just kept shaking his head, his voice weak. I didn't steal anything." "Yeah, sure," the store owner snapped. "You ran out of my shop, didn't you?" The man swallowed hard. "I was hungry. I just wanted something to eat. But I put it back. I swear I did." No one was listening. The officers continued to drag him toward their car. Olivia's hands curled into fists. This wasn't right. But what could she do? She was just a kid. Just a high school student. Then, an idea struck her. Maybe she wasn't a lawyer in the traditional sense, but she knew more about the law than most adults. And if no one else was going to fight for this man, she would. That night, Olivia stayed up researching the case. She learned everything she could about theft laws, wrongful arrests, and public defenders. She found out that the man, his name was Thomas Grayson, was scheduled to appear in court in just a few days. And worse, he didn't even have a lawyer. The thought made Olivia's stomach twist. She couldn't let this happen. The next morning, she made a bold decision. She walked into the county courthouse, straightened her shoulders, and told the clerk at the front desk, "I'd like to see the judge handling the Thomas Grayson case." The woman raised an eyebrow. "And you are?" Olivia took a deep breath. "His lawyer." The words came out stronger than she expected. The woman laughed. You don't look a day over 17. Olivia smiled. "I'll take that as a compliment." And just like that, she was in. Of course, it wasn't that simple. It took some convincing. A lot of it. At first, no one believed her. But Olivia had prepared for this. She had studied legal procedures so well that when she spoke, she sounded like an actual attorney. She knew the right words to say, the right arguments to make. By the time she walked into the courtroom a week later, standing next to Thomas Grayson, no one knew the truth. The judge assumed she was a young but highly gifted legal professional. The prosecutor didn't question it. Even Thomas himself, sitting beside her, looked at her in awe. "Are you really my lawyer?" he whispered. Olivia gave him a reassuring nod. "I won't let them hurt you." And so, the trial began. The courtroom was filled with tension. The store owner sat in the witness stand, his arms crossed. The prosecutor, a man twice Olivia's age, smirked at her as if this was going to be an easy win. But then, Olivia started talking, and everything changed. She pointed out inconsistencies in the store owner's story. She revealed security footage showing that Thomas had never actually left the store with stolen goods. She questioned the arresting officers, forcing them to admit they hadn't really investigated before detaining him. Her voice never wavered. Her logic was airtight. And with each passing minute, the confidence on the prosecutor's face began to fade. And then, Olivia dropped the bombshell. A single piece of evidence that no one had seen coming. The moment she presented it, the entire courtroom went silent. The judge, the jury, the prosecutor, everyone just stared at her, stunned. And then, the doors at the back of the courtroom flew open. Someone had just walked in, and from the way the bailiff rushed toward them, it was clear. Something big was about to happen. All eyes turned toward the back of the courtroom. A tall man in a dark suit had just entered, his face tense, his movements urgent. The bailiff stepped forward to intercept him, but the man held up a badge, FBI. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. The judge narrowed his eyes, clearly displeased by the interruption. "Sir, this is a court of law," he said, his voice stern. "You cannot simply barge in during an ongoing trial." The FBI agent ignored him. His eyes were locked on Olivia. "Miss Brooks," he said, his voice sharp, "where did you get that document?" The entire courtroom turned back to Olivia. She stood firm, her expression calm, but inside, her heart was pounding. She had just presented a key piece of evidence, a document proving that Thomas Grayson had been framed. It was a store inventory report showing that nothing had actually been stolen. The report had mysteriously vanished from the case file. Yet somehow, Olivia had gotten her hands on it. And now, the FBI wanted to know how. She swallowed hard, gripping the edges of her notes. "Is there a problem, sir?" she asked, her voice steady. The agent took another step forward. "Where did you get that document?" he repeated, his tone harsher this time. Before Olivia could answer, the prosecutor stood up, his face pale. "Your Honor, I move to call a recess," he said quickly. "We need to." "Denied," the judge said firmly. His sharp eyes moved between Olivia and the agent. "Miss Brooks, answer the question. Where did you get that report?" Silence fell over the room. For the first time since the trial began, Olivia hesitated. She had prepared for everything, every argument, every counterargument, every possible way the prosecutor would try to trap her. But she hadn't prepared for this, because the truth was, she had obtained the document in a way that could get her into serious trouble. And if she told them the truth now, everything she had worked for could come crashing down. She took a deep breath. I received it anonymously," she said finally. It was a lie, but it was the only way to protect herself. The agent studied her carefully. His eyes were searching, as if he was trying to see past the mask she was wearing. After a long, tense moment, he nodded slowly and stepped back. "Very well," he said. "Proceed." The tension in the room eased slightly, but Olivia knew this wasn't over. A week earlier, Olivia had been sitting alone in the library, surrounded by legal books and case files she had managed to get her hands on. She had spent hours digging, trying to figure out why Thomas Grayson was being targeted. The case didn't make sense. If Thomas had really stolen something, there should have been clear evidence. Surveillance footage, witnesses, a proper inventory check. But the more Olivia dug, the more she realized that there were too many missing pieces. The biggest red flag? The store's security camera footage had been accidentally deleted the day of the alleged theft. That was when Olivia knew something bigger was going on. Someone wanted Thomas locked up. But why? She needed proof. Real proof. So, she did something risky. She stayed up late that night, sneaking onto legal forums, reaching out to anyone who might have inside information. She used fake names, careful not to reveal her real identity. And then, at exactly 3:17 a.m., an anonymous email popped up in her inbox. It contained only one thing: the missing store inventory report. No name, no explanation, just the proof she needed. She had no idea who sent it. But now, standing in the courtroom with the FBI breathing down her neck, she realized whoever had sent it had to be someone with power, and they were watching her. The judge cleared his throat. "Miss Brooks, you may continue with your defense." Olivia nodded, pushing her worries aside. She couldn't afford to be distracted. She turned back to the jury, her voice strong. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, gesturing toward Thomas Grayson, "you have heard the accusations against my client. You have heard the store owner's claim that he saw Thomas steal from his shop. But now, you have seen undeniable proof that no items were stolen at all." She turned, looking directly at the store owner. "Sir, can you explain why your inventory records show no missing products, yet you told police otherwise?" The store owner shifted in his seat. Beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. I must have made a mistake," he stammered. "A mistake?" Olivia repeated, raising an eyebrow. "Or were you lying?" The prosecutor shot up from his chair. "Objection. The defense is badgering the witness." "Sustained," the judge said. He gave Olivia a sharp look. "Miss Brooks, rephrase your question." Olivia nodded, then turned back to the store owner. "Sir, are you sure you saw my client take something from your store?" The man hesitated. His fingers twitched, and for the first time, Olivia saw it, the guilt in his eyes. He was hiding something. The courtroom held its breath. And then, bang, the sound of a gunshot rang through the building. Screams erupted. The judge ducked behind his bench. The jury members scrambled for cover. The bailiff pulled out his weapon, yelling for everyone to stay down. Olivia's heart slammed against her ribs. She spun around and saw the FBI agent lying on the ground, blood pooling beneath him, and standing over him, a figure in a black hoodie, holding a gun. The gunman turned, and their eyes met. For a split second, Olivia saw something familiar in their face. And then, they ran. The doors to the courtroom burst open as security guards chased after them. Chaos erupted, people shouting, the judge demanding order. But Olivia barely heard any of it. Because in that moment, as she stood frozen in shock, one terrifying thought filled her mind. Whoever that gunman was, they weren't just after the FBI agent. They were after the case. And that meant they were after her. The courtroom was in chaos. The gunman had vanished through the double doors, leaving behind a room full of terrified people and an FBI agent bleeding on the floor. Security guards and police officers sprinted after the shooter, their voices echoing through the hallways. "Lock down the building," someone shouted. "Get a medic in here," another voice barked. Olivia barely heard any of it. She stood frozen, her heart pounding in her ears. Who was that shooter? Why did they target the FBI agent? And most terrifying of all, had they been coming for her next? She shook herself out of her daze just as the paramedics rushed in, dropping to their knees beside the fallen agent. Blood pooled around him, but he was still conscious, gripping one of the medic's arms. His lips moved weakly, struggling to get words out. Olivia took a hesitant step forward, her instincts screaming at her to listen. The agent turned his head slightly, his gaze locking onto her. His face was twisted in pain, but his eyes were clear, sharp, focused. He lifted a trembling hand and pointed at her. "Find the second." His voice was barely above a whisper. Then, his eyes fluttered shut, and the medics rushed him onto a stretcher. Olivia's blood ran cold. Find the second. What did that mean? She barely had time to think before the judge slammed his gavel down. "Order. Order in this court." His voice was hoarse, shaken, but still authoritative. Everyone remain calm. This trial is postponed until further notice. I want every single person in this courtroom questioned by the authorities before they leave. No exceptions. Murmurs of panic rippled through the crowd. Some people cried. Others clung to each other. The jury looked shaken, their hands gripping the arms of their chairs tightly. Olivia turned to Thomas Grayson. He was staring at her, not in fear, but in awe. You're still gonna defend me, right? His voice was soft, uncertain. Olivia swallowed hard. She had stepped into this case because she believed Thomas was innocent. She had fought against the odds, risking everything to prove it. But now, something bigger was happening. Someone was willing to kill to stop this trial. She nodded firmly. I'm not giving up on you. Thomas let out a shaky breath. Then, what do we do now? Olivia clenched her fists. She didn't know. Not yet. But she was going to find out. The police kept Olivia at the courthouse for hours, questioning her relentlessly. Did you recognize the shooter? Why did the FBI agent speak to you before he passed out? Where did you get that store report? She answered carefully, sticking to her story. She didn't recognize the shooter. She had received the report anonymously. She had no idea why the FBI agent spoke to her. Some of that was true. Some of it wasn't. She couldn't tell them what the agent had said. Not yet. Find the second. If she repeated those words now, she'd be dragged into something much bigger than this case. And if she wasn't careful, she could end up behind bars herself. Finally, after hours of questioning, they let her go. Her mother was waiting for her outside, eyes red from worry. Olivia. She pulled her into a tight hug. I was so scared. What were you thinking, being in the middle of all that? Olivia didn't know how to answer. Instead, she just hugged her mother back, letting herself be comforted. She hadn't realized how scared she really was, but fear wouldn't stop her. She had to keep going. That night, Olivia sat on her bed, staring at the ceiling. The entire case was spiraling into something far more dangerous than she had ever imagined. She was just a 17-year-old girl. She had walked into that courtroom thinking she could outsmart the legal system and win a simple case. But now, someone had just tried to silence the truth. The FBI was involved, and there was something, or someone, else at play. Find the second. The second what? The second person? The second piece of evidence? The second suspect? She sat up abruptly, grabbing her laptop and pulling up all the files she had gathered. The store inventory report was what had changed everything. The moment she revealed it in court, someone panicked. Someone powerful enough to have a shooter waiting in the wings. She clicked through the files, searching for anything she might have missed. And then, she saw it. A small, barely noticeable detail in the inventory report. Something was off. Something that didn't make sense. Her breath caught in her throat. This wasn't just about Thomas Grayson. This was bigger. Much, much bigger. She reached for her phone with shaky fingers. She had to tell someone. But before she could dial a number, bang! A loud noise came from outside her window. Olivia froze. Then, footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Someone was outside, watching her. Her heart pounded against her ribs. She slowly reached for her bedside lamp, her fingers trembling. And then, her bedroom doorknob started turning. Someone was inside the house. Olivia's breath caught in her throat. The doorknob turned slowly, creaking as if someone was testing it, seeing if it was locked. Her mind screamed at her to move, to run, but her body was frozen in place. Then, click. The doorknob stopped turning. Silence. For a single, terrifying second, she thought maybe, just maybe, whoever was on the other side had given up. Then bang. The door burst open. Olivia didn't think. She grabbed the closest thing, a heavy law textbook, and hurled it at the shadowy figure stepping inside. The book smacked against something solid, and the figure let out a grunt, stumbling back. She lunged for her phone. Her hands trembled as she unlocked it, ready to call 911. But then, wait, Olivia, it's me. She stopped cold. The figure was holding their hands up now, gasping for breath. The dim glow from her bedside lamp finally lit up their face. Her eyes widened. Ryan. Standing in the doorway was Ryan Carter, her classmate. He was out of breath, his dark hair a mess, his hoodie half-zipped like he had run all the way here. What are you doing in my house?" she demanded, still gripping her phone. "Are you insane?" Ryan bent over, catching his breath. He swallowed hard. "I had to see you." Olivia narrowed her eyes. "By breaking into my room in the middle of the night?" "I didn't break in," he defended quickly, lifting his hands. "Your back door was unlocked." Her stomach twisted. That wasn't possible. Her mother always locked up before going to bed. "That doesn't explain why you're here," she snapped. Ryan hesitated, running a hand through his hair. His usual easygoing expression was gone. In its place was something she had never seen before. Pure fear. "You're in danger," he said, his voice deadly serious. Olivia stared at him. "Tell me something I don't know," she said bitterly. "Someone just got shot in court today, and now I have a stalker outside my window." Ryan's jaw tightened. "That's why I came." He stepped inside, shutting the door behind him. "You don't understand, Olivia. It's bigger than just the trial." Her stomach clenched. "He knows." "Start talking," she demanded, crossing her arms. Ryan hesitated for a moment before lowering his voice. "You were asking about the store inventory report, right?" Olivia's breath caught. He knew about that? She nodded slowly. Ryan exhaled. "I work part-time at that store." Olivia's mind reeled. She had known Ryan since middle school, but they weren't exactly close. They had some classes together, and he was popular in school. A star soccer player, always surrounded by friends. She never would have guessed he worked at the very store tied to the trial. "And," she pressed. Ryan's face darkened. "And I saw something I wasn't supposed to." Olivia's skin prickled. Ryan swallowed hard. "The inventory report you showed in court, it wasn't just missing. Someone deleted it on purpose. And it wasn't just about Thomas Grayson." He took a shaky breath. "It was covering up something bigger. A second theft." Olivia's eyes widened. "Find the second." She felt the blood drain from her face. "Who deleted it?" she whispered. Ryan hesitated, glancing toward her window, as if he expected someone to be watching. "I don't know," he admitted. "But—" his voice lowered. "Whoever it was, they don't want anyone to find out." A chill ran down Olivia's spine. "Ryan," she said slowly, "what did you see?" Ryan licked his lips nervously. "A week before Thomas was arrested, I was closing up the store late at night. There was a man there. I didn't recognize him. He wasn't a regular. He was standing near the stockroom, looking around like he was waiting for something." He took a shaky breath. "Then another guy came in. They didn't see me, but I heard them talking." "What were they saying?" Olivia whispered. Ryan hesitated. "I couldn't hear everything, but I caught one thing." His expression darkened. "They said something about a shipment. Something about needing to get it off the books before anyone noticed." Olivia's heart pounded. "A shipment of what?" Ryan shook his head. "I don't know. But the next morning, I checked the inventory records. There was an entry that had been erased, like someone had covered up a missing item." He looked her dead in the eyes. "Whatever they were hiding, it's the reason Thomas was arrested." Olivia's stomach twisted. If Ryan was telling the truth, this wasn't just about Thomas stealing food. It was about something bigger, something worth silencing people over. She exhaled shakily. "Why are you telling me this now?" Ryan looked down. "Because when I saw what happened in court today, when I saw that FBI agent get shot, I knew I had to warn you." He lifted his eyes. "I think they know I saw something, Olivia, and I think you just made yourself their biggest target." A shiver ran down her spine. Ryan clenched his fists. "Whoever they are, they don't just want Thomas behind bars. They want to bury this whole thing." His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "And I think they're willing to kill to do it." A heavy silence filled the room. Olivia's mind raced. A shipment. A second theft. A cover-up. Someone had been deleting records. And now, an FBI agent was in the hospital. She had walked into this case thinking it was just about proving a homeless man's innocence. But now, she realized she had stepped into something much, much darker. Her pulse pounded as she turned back to Ryan. "We need to find out what they were hiding," she said. Ryan stared at her like she was crazy. "Olivia, did you not hear me?" People are getting shot over this. I know, she said firmly. That's why we have to figure it out before they come for us next. Ryan ran a hand down his face. I cannot believe I'm saying this, but what's the plan? Olivia grabbed her laptop. We start with the store. Ryan blinked. What? She pulled up the store's website. There has to be something. Security logs, old employee records, anything. We need to figure out who was behind that missing shipment. Ryan sighed. We're going to get ourselves killed. Olivia ignored him, her fingers flying over the keyboard. And then, a message popped up on her screen. Her breath caught. It was another anonymous email. No subject, no sender, just one line of text. Stop digging, or you're next. Olivia's hands clenched into fists. Someone was watching them, and they were running out of time. The room felt colder. The words on Olivia's screen seemed to burn into her vision. Stop digging, or you're next. Ryan leaned over her shoulder, reading the message. His face paled. Yeah, okay. That's terrifying, he muttered. Turn the laptop off. Burn it. Move to another country. But Olivia didn't move. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, her heart hammering in her chest. Who sent this? How did they know what she was doing? She looked at Ryan. This proves we're onto something. This proves we're being watched, he countered. We need to stop before we end up like that FBI agent. Olivia exhaled, forcing herself to think. Whoever sent this message, did they know she had a witness now? Did they know about Ryan? Her fingers tightened into fists. No, she wasn't backing down. She clicked on the email, scanning for any trace of where it had come from. Nothing. No name, no location. It was sent through an anonymous server. Ryan ran a hand through his hair. This is insane. Who even has the resources to cover up a case like this? And more importantly, why would they target a store clerk and a homeless guy? Olivia's mind was spinning. It didn't add up. The store wasn't some high-profile company. It was just a local chain. But the missing shipment. She turned to Ryan. Do you remember the name of the guys you saw that night? Ryan shook his head. I barely saw their faces. Think, she urged. Did they say anything about who they were working for? Ryan hesitated, his brows furrowing. One of them mentioned a name. Just once. Olivia's pulse quickened. What name? Ryan exhaled. Harrison. She blinked. First name or last name? I don't know, he admitted. But they said something like, Harrison won't be happy if this gets out. Olivia's stomach twisted. Harrison. It wasn't much, but it was something. She turned back to her laptop, typing the name into a search engine along with the store's name. Dozens of results popped up. Most were irrelevant. But then, she froze. A headline caught her eye. CEO of Harrison Industries invests in local grocery chain expansion. Olivia clicked on the article, her heart pounding. Harrison Industries, a private logistics company. And the man behind it? Richard Harrison, a businessman with a reputation for making problems disappear. She turned to Ryan, eyes wide. This isn't just about the store, she whispered. It's about their supplier. Ryan frowned. You think this guy is involved? Olivia's mouth was dry. If Harrison Industries handles their shipments, and there was something missing from the records, she swallowed, then whatever they were hiding wasn't just food or regular store products. Ryan's face paled. Then what was it? Before she could answer, a loud knock pounded against the front door downstairs. Both of them froze. Olivia's stomach clenched. It was almost midnight. Who would be knocking this late? She grabbed Ryan's arm. Stay here. Ryan gave her a look like she had lost her mind. Are you kidding? Someone just threatened you, and you're answering the door? She hesitated. He was right. Another knock. Louder this time. Olivia took a shaky breath and grabbed her phone. Who is it? She called. Silence. She swallowed hard. Then, a voice. Miss Brooks. It's the FBI. We need to talk. Ryan stiffened beside her. Olivia's grip on her phone tightened. The FBI. Again. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. Ryan gave her a worried look. How do we know it's really them? She hesitated. They didn't. But if she didn't open that door, they might break it down. She swallowed hard and stepped toward the front entrance, glancing through the peephole. Two men in dark suits stood outside, their expressions unreadable. One of them held up a badge. She exhaled and slowly unlocked the door. As soon as she opened it, the taller agent stepped forward. "Miss Brooks," he said, "we need you to come with us."
Now.
Her pulse spiked. "Why?" she asked cautiously. The agent's face was grim. "Because we think someone just put a hit on you." Ryan let out a string of curses behind her. Olivia felt the floor sway beneath her. She had been expecting danger. But a hit? This wasn't just about threats anymore. Someone wanted her dead. Olivia's breath caught in her throat. "A hit?" she repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. The taller FBI agent, a man with sharp features and tired eyes, nodded. "We intercepted a communication tonight. Someone has put out an order to eliminate you." Ryan sucked in a sharp breath behind her. "Oh, fantastic. Just what we needed. A death sentence." Olivia felt like the room was closing in. This was no longer just about uncovering the truth. Someone wanted her gone. The shorter agent, a woman with a no-nonsense expression, stepped forward. "You need to come with us, Miss Brooks. We have a safe house prepared." Olivia hesitated. Every instinct told her not to trust them. "How do I know this isn't a trap?" she asked, folding her arms. The female agent's face didn't change. "If we wanted to harm you, we wouldn't have knocked." "Fair point." Ryan grabbed her wrist, pulling her aside. "Olivia, this is crazy. You really think going with them is a good idea?" She met his eyes. "I don't know." But she did know one thing. If someone had put a hit on her, staying here wasn't an option. She turned back to the agents. "I'll go," she said. "But Ryan comes with me." Ryan's eyes widened. "Wait, what?" The female agent frowned. "Miss Brooks, take both of us or I don't move," Olivia said firmly. The agents exchanged glances. Finally, the taller agent sighed. "Fine, but keep quiet and move fast." Ryan groaned. "This is the worst night of my life." They were whisked away in a black SUV, the windows tinted so dark that Olivia couldn't even see where they were going. "Where are you taking us?" she asked. "Safe house," the male agent replied. "You'll stay there until we figure out who's behind this." She bit her lip. "And the trial?" The female agent sighed. "Postponed indefinitely. With what happened in the courtroom, your case is no longer just a legal matter. It's a security risk." Olivia's stomach twisted. They were trying to bury it. That's what the people behind this wanted, and she couldn't let that happen. They arrived at a small house deep in the woods. No streetlights, no neighbors. The agents led them inside and locked the door behind them. "Stay put," the female agent ordered. "We'll be back." And just like that, they were alone. Ryan flopped onto the couch. "I can't believe this. My life was normal 12 hours ago. Now I'm in some FBI witness protection thing because you decided to play lawyer." Olivia ignored him. She was still thinking about the name Ryan had given her. Harrison. She needed more information. Her phone had been taken by the agents, but that wasn't going to stop her. She spotted an old laptop on the kitchen counter, probably left here by the FBI. She powered it on, quickly bypassing the basic security. Ryan sat up. "What are you doing?" "Looking for answers," she muttered. She searched Harrison Industries. Dozens of articles popped up about the company, most of them about logistics, investments, and expansion projects. But then, she found something buried under all the fluff. An old news article. "Warehouse fire at Harrison Shipping Hub. Authorities suspect arson." Olivia clicked on it, scanning the details. A fire had broken out in one of Harrison's warehouses 3 years ago. The report claimed it was accidental, but then she saw something strange. One employee had died in the fire. And his name? Thomas Grayson. Olivia's heart stopped. She reread the name, her hands shaking. Ryan leaned over her shoulder. "Wait, that can't be right. Thomas is alive." Olivia's mind was spinning. The article said Thomas Grayson had died. So why was he sitting in a courtroom, accused of theft? Her stomach twisted as a terrifying realization hit her. "Ryan," she whispered, "I don't think they were trying to arrest Thomas. I think they were trying to erase him." Ryan's face went pale. It means Thomas saw something," she finished. "Something so dangerous. They tried to make sure he died in that fire." Ryan exhaled sharply. And now that you're trying to prove his innocence, they want to erase you too. Before Olivia could respond, a loud crack shattered the silence. The sound of glass breaking. Someone was outside. Ryan shot to his feet. Tell me that was a raccoon. Another crack. The window behind them splintered. A bullet tore through the glass, burying itself into the wall. Ryan shoved Olivia down. Not a raccoon. Footsteps pounded outside. They weren't safe. They had been found. The world exploded into chaos. Olivia's heart pounded as she and Ryan hit the floor, glass raining down around them. Another crack. A second bullet buried itself into the kitchen wall, just inches from where they had been standing. Ryan cursed. They found us. We have to get out of here. Olivia's mind raced. The FBI agents had left them here, supposedly safe. But now someone had tracked them down. If they stayed, they'd be sitting ducks. Another shot. This time, it hit the couch, stuffing bursting into the air like a cloud. Ryan grabbed her arm. Move. They scrambled to their feet, sprinting toward the hallway. Olivia's legs felt shaky, but adrenaline pushed her forward. A shadow moved outside the broken window. Footsteps crunched on the gravel. More than one person. They weren't just being hunted. They were surrounded. Ryan yanked open a door, revealing a laundry room with a small window. Come on. Olivia didn't hesitate. She climbed onto the washer, gripping the edge of the window frame. Ryan shoved her upward as she squeezed through, the cold night air slapping against her face. As soon as her feet hit the ground outside, she spun, reaching down to help Ryan. But before he could climb through, a loud bang. The front door of the house was kicked open. Heavy boots stomped inside. Ryan's eyes went wide. Go. Run. But Olivia grabbed his arm. No way. I'm not leaving you. Ryan scrambled up, pulling himself through the window just as a masked man stormed into the laundry room. Itchy why? The man shouted, raising a gun. Ryan barely made it out before a shot blasted through the window. Gio! He shouted, grabbing Olivia's hand as they sprinted into the trees. The forest was dark, the only light coming from the moon. Branches whipped against Olivia's face as they ran, her lungs burning. She could hear voices behind them, shouting, orders being barked. The men weren't giving up. They were being hunted. Ryan pulled her to the right, his grip tight. We need to get to the road. If we find a car. A loud snap echoed behind them. Someone was closer. Too close. A hand grabbed Olivia's shoulder. She screamed as she was yanked backward. Ryan spun, his eyes wild. Olivia. Before she could react, she was slammed against a tree. A man in dark tactical gear loomed over her. A ski mask covered his face, but his eyes were cold. Calculated. Should have stopped digging, kid, he muttered. Olivia struggled, kicking at him, but he was too strong. She tried to scream, but he clamped a gloved hand over her mouth. Shoo, he whispered. No one's coming to save you. Terror flooded her veins. This was it. She had gotten too close. Now they were going to make sure she disappeared. Then, a crack. The man's body jerked forward, his grip loosening. A second later, he collapsed. Ryan stood behind him, a thick branch in his hands. His chest heaved. Did I just knock a guy out? Olivia didn't wait to find out. She grabbed his wrist. Run. They tore through the forest again, the shouts behind them growing more distant. Finally, after what felt like forever, they broke through the trees onto a small, winding road. Empty. No cars. No lights. Ryan bent over, gasping. Now what? Olivia's mind raced. Then, she saw it. A small wooden sign near the road. She squinted, barely making out the words. Harrison Industries private property. No trespassing. Her stomach dropped. They hadn't just stumbled onto any random stretch of road. They were near Harrison Industries land. Ryan followed her gaze. Oh, that's bad. Olivia's mind spun. They couldn't go back. They couldn't stay here. There was only one option. We break in, she said. Ryan choked. I'm sorry, what? Olivia pointed toward a warehouse in the distance, its metal exterior glinting under the moonlight. If we're this close to Harrison's property, that means the answers are in there, she said firmly. This is our chance. Ryan groaned. or it's our chance to die. Olivia turned to him, her eyes fierce. Ryan, they're not going to stop until I'm dead. Until we're dead. If we don't find out the truth, we'll never be safe. Ryan ran a hand down his face. I hate that you make sense. Olivia grabbed his arm. Then let's go. And with that, they ran toward the warehouse. Straight into the lion's den. The warehouse loomed ahead, dark and silent. A fortress in the middle of nowhere. Olivia and Ryan crouched low as they moved toward the side of the building, their hearts pounding. Every step felt like they were walking straight into danger. Ryan muttered, "This is a bad idea. This is such a bad idea." Olivia ignored him. She was focused. If Harrison Industries was involved in covering something up, this was the place to find proof. She scanned the building. No guards. No cameras outside. Weird. It was too quiet. They reached a side door. Olivia tested the handle. Locked. Ryan sighed. And now we go home, right? Olivia pulled a hairpin from her pocket. Hold this. Ryan stared as she bent the pin and jammed it into the lock. Are you seriously picking a lock right now? He whispered harshly. She twisted the pin, listening for the click. Ryan ran a hand through his hair. I don't even know you anymore. Click. The lock popped open. Olivia smirked. Come on. Ryan muttered, yeah, let's just casually break into a crime syndicate's warehouse. This is totally normal. They slipped inside. The air was thick with dust and the smell of metal. Dim yellow lights flickered overhead. The warehouse was massive. Rows of shipping containers stacked high against the walls. Forklifts and pallets of sealed crates filled the space. It was eerily empty. No workers. No security. Olivia's pulse quickened. They were hiding something. She turned to Ryan. We need to find out what's inside these crates. Ryan sighed. Fine. Let's do crime. They crept toward the nearest crate, a massive wooden box with a shipping label. Olivia squinted at the faded words. Property of Harrison Industries. Her stomach tightened. Ryan pointed at a crowbar resting on a nearby pallet. Lucky us. He grabbed it, wedged the metal tip under the crate lid, and pushed. The wood creaked loudly. Olivia flinched, glancing around. No one. Ryan pried the lid open. Inside, rows of small black cases, neatly stacked. Olivia's breath caught. These weren't food supplies. They weren't store products. Ryan reached in, his hands shaking slightly, and pulled out one of the cases. He unlatched it and flipped the lid open. They both froze. Inside was a handgun. Brand new. Unregistered. Olivia felt a chill crawl down her spine. Ryan swallowed hard. Are these illegal firearms? Olivia finished, her voice barely a whisper. She glanced at the other crates. If all of these are filled with weapons. Ryan's face drained of color. Then Harrison Industries isn't just some logistics company. They're running a weapons smuggling ring. Olivia's stomach churned. This was why Thomas Grayson had been framed. He must have seen something about the shipments, and instead of killing him in that warehouse fire 3 years ago, they tried to make him disappear. But when he resurfaced, homeless and desperate for food, they used that as an excuse to put him away for good. Ryan whispered, This is big. We need to leave the country, big. Olivia shook her head. We're not running. Ryan groaned. I knew you were gonna say that. We need proof. Olivia pulled out her phone. If we can get pictures. Before she could snap a photo, a voice echoed through the warehouse. You really should have walked away, kid. Olivia and Ryan spun. A man stood on the catwalk above them, aiming a pistol straight at Olivia's head. Her blood ran cold. Ryan whispered, Oh, we are so dead. The man tilted his head. Miss Brooks, you've caused us quite the headache. Olivia's hands clenched into fists. He knew her name. This wasn't just some random security guard. This was someone who had been watching her. The man smirked. You really should have stopped digging. Then, the sound of footsteps. More men stepped out from the shadows, guns in hand. Ryan muttered, I hate everything about this. The first man raised his gun. Goodbye, kid. Bang. A shot rang out, but it wasn't from him. The man jerked forward, his body stiffening. Then he collapsed. Gunfire erupted as bullets zipped through the air. Ryan grabbed Olivia's arm. Run! They bolted, ducking behind crates as more shots rang out. Olivia's heart was racing. Who had fired that first shot? Then, she saw them. A team of armed FBI agents storming through the warehouse. Ryan let out a breath. Oh my God! The cavalry's here. The FBI agents moved fast, taking down the men one by one. Olivia spotted a familiar face. The female agent from earlier. She locked eyes with Olivia, shouting, "Get down!" Olivia and Ryan dropped just as another round of gunfire tore through the warehouse. Chaos erupted. The air filled with shouts, the echo of bullets, the sound of crates shattering. But Olivia barely noticed, because in the middle of it all, she saw a familiar figure sprinting for the back exit. Richard Harrison, the mastermind behind everything. He was escaping. Olivia's pulse spiked. This was her chance. She leapt up. "I'm going after him." Ryan grabbed her arm. "Are you crazy? We're in the middle of a shootout." She shook him off. "I can't let him get away." Ryan groaned. "I hate my life." And then, he ran after her. They tore through the warehouse, dodging debris. Harrison pushed through a metal door, disappearing outside. Olivia and Ryan followed, bursting into the night. Harrison was sprinting toward a black SUV, his driver already starting the engine. Olivia pushed herself harder, her lungs burning. She had to stop him. Harrison reached the car. He yanked open the door. Olivia threw herself at him. They crashed to the ground. Harrison grunted, shoving her off. He scrambled to his feet, aiming a gun at her. Olivia froze. Ryan skidded to a stop behind her. "Oh, come on," Harrison smirked. "You're a persistent little pest, aren't you?" Olivia glared up at him. "You tried to erase Thomas Grayson," she spat. "You framed him. You've been smuggling weapons, and now you're trying to disappear." Harrison tilted his head. "And what are you going to do about it?" A loud click echoed behind him. Harrison stiffened. Olivia's breath hitched. The FBI agents had caught up. The female agent stood behind Harrison, her gun trained on him. "Drop it," she ordered. For the first time, Harrison's smirk faltered. Slowly, he lowered his gun. The agents swarmed, pinning him down. Ryan exhaled. "Is it over?" Olivia watched as Harrison was hauled to his feet, his hands cuffed. She turned to Ryan. "I think we just won." The flashing red and blue lights painted the night as FBI agents swarmed the warehouse. The chaos was finally settling, but Olivia's heart was still racing. Harrison was shoved into the back of an armored vehicle, his face twisted with rage. Even in handcuffs, he radiated power. He turned his head just enough to glare at Olivia. "This isn't over." Olivia met his gaze, unflinching. "Yes, it is." The door slammed shut, cutting off his sneer. Ryan let out a slow breath, running a hand through his hair. "I cannot believe we're alive." The female agent approached them, her sharp eyes scanning Olivia. "That was reckless." Olivia crossed her arms. "But effective." The agent sighed, but there was the faintest hint of approval in her expression. "We've been investigating Harrison Industries for years. Your little stunt just gave us the final piece we needed." Olivia raised an eyebrow. "So you're saying I did your job for you?" Ryan groaned. "Please stop poking the FBI." The agent smirked. "I'm saying you're lucky, but you're also in deep." Olivia's stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" The agent's face hardened. "Harrison may be in custody, but he's not the only one involved. His network runs deep. People in law enforcement, politics. Some of them won't want this case to see the light of day." Ryan muttered, "Oh, great. More people who want to kill us." Olivia frowned. "So what happens now?" The agent hesitated. "We'll protect you. But if I were you..." She met Olivia's gaze. "I'd lay low for a while." Olivia exhaled. She had expected victory to feel better than this. Ryan nudged her. "Hey, we did it. Thomas is gonna be free." Her chest loosened. That was true. They had fought for justice, and they had won. She turned back to the agent. "I want to be there when Thomas is released." The agent studied her, then nodded. "We'll arrange it." 3 days later, the courthouse was packed. The media had gotten hold of the story. 17-year-old lawyer exposes corrupt billionaire. Cameras flashed as Olivia stepped inside, her pulse steady. At the front of the room, Thomas Grayson stood next to a public defender. He looked different, cleaner, wearing a suit that didn't quite fit. But his eyes, they were the same. Hopeful. The judge cleared his throat. After reviewing new evidence, the court finds Thomas Grayson not guilty. All charges are dropped. A wave of emotion crashed over Olivia. The room erupted in applause. Thomas turned, his eyes locking onto Olivia. He stepped forward, his voice raw. "I don't know how to thank you." She smiled. "You don't have to. Because this moment, was enough. Justice had won." But Olivia knew this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. The courtroom buzzed with voices, reporters whispering to each other as their cameras clicked furiously. But Olivia barely heard them. She was watching Thomas Grayson, the man who had been wrongfully accused, who had been treated like a criminal for simply being hungry, now stood as a free man. His eyes glistened with emotion, his hands trembling at his sides. "You saved my life," he said softly. Olivia shook her head. "No, I just made sure the truth was heard." Thomas swallowed hard, then pulled her into a sudden, tight hug. For a moment, Olivia stiffened. She hadn't expected it. But then she let herself relax, patting his back awkwardly. Ryan, standing beside her, muttered, "If I get emotional, punch me." Olivia smirked but didn't take her eyes off Thomas. He pulled back, wiping his eyes. "I spent years thinking no one cared if I disappeared. But you didn't just fight for me. You believed in me." Her throat tightened. She had taken on this case thinking it was just about justice. But it was more than that. It was about kindness, about empathy, about refusing to look the other way. The judge rapped his gavel, calling the courtroom to order one last time. "Mr. Grayson, you are free to go." The weight in Olivia's chest finally lifted. They had won, but she knew the fight wasn't over. As Thomas walked out of the courthouse, surrounded by news reporters, Olivia and Ryan trailed behind. Ryan let out a breath. "So, does this mean we can go back to normal life now?" Olivia didn't answer. She could feel it. The weight of unfinished business. Harrison was behind bars, but he had resources, connections, and worse, he wasn't the only one involved. "Olivia," Ryan groaned. "I know that look. That's your, I'm about to do something reckless look." She ignored him, glancing at the nearest television screen in the hallway. Breaking news: billionaire Richard Harrison arrested for smuggling operation. More arrests expected. Her gut twisted. More arrests expected. That meant there were still people out there. People who wanted her gone. People who wanted to bury the truth. She turned to Ryan. "This isn't over." Ryan sighed, dragging a hand down his face. "Of course it isn't." Later that night, Olivia sat at her desk, staring at her laptop screen. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. A new email had appeared in her inbox. No sender. No subject. Just 2 words. "Keep watching." A chill ran down her spine. Whoever sent this wasn't done with her. She took a shaky breath. She had uncovered the truth once. And if she had to, she'd do it again. Olivia's fingers trembled over the keyboard. "Keep watching." 2 words. No sender. No trace. A warning? A threat? Ryan peered over her shoulder, reading the message. His face paled. "Nope. Nope. 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 We are not doing this again." Olivia barely heard him. Someone was still watching. Someone who knew she wasn't done digging. She turned in her chair, her voice steady. "Ryan, we need to find out who sent this." Ryan threw his hands up. "Or, hear me out, we don't. We take the win, move on, and not get shot at again." She shook her head. "This isn't over." Harrison was just one piece of the puzzle. Ryan groaned. Of course he was. Why wouldn't he be? It's not like we almost died or anything. Ignoring him, Olivia clicked on the email's metadata, scanning for any clues. Nothing. Whoever sent it was careful. Too careful. Her stomach twisted. This wasn't just a warning. It was an invitation. Someone wanted her to keep looking, and she was going to find out why. The next morning, a knock at her door jolted Olivia awake. She had fallen asleep at her desk, her laptop still open. Her mom's voice came through the door. "Olivia, there's someone here to see you." Olivia rubbed her eyes. Who? Her mom hesitated. The FBI. Her stomach dropped. She shot up, heart pounding. She stepped into the living room and froze. The female agent from before stood near the window, her arms crossed. Miss Brooks, she greeted. We need to talk. Olivia folded her arms. About what? The agent's face darkened. About why Richard Harrison just made bail. Olivia's breath hitched. That's impossible, Ryan blurted. He's a weapons smuggler. The agent sighed. And a billionaire. People like him don't stay locked up for long. Olivia's fists clenched. He was free. Just like that. The agent stepped closer. He still has allies, Olivia. And we believe one of them is inside the justice system. Ryan muttered. So we're fighting corrupt billionaires and dirty cops now? Great. Fantastic. Olivia's mind was racing. This was bigger than she thought. She looked at the agent. You think someone's helping him cover this up? The agent nodded. And we need your help to find out who. Olivia's pulse spiked. Wait, Ryan said. You're asking us to get involved this time? Weren't you just telling us to lay low? The agent sighed. We were. But Harrison isn't just after you anymore, Olivia. Her stomach tightened. What do you mean? The agent pulled out a folder, flipping it open. A photo slid across the table. Thomas Grayson. But not the way she had last seen him. The image showed him sitting on a bus stop bench, looking over his shoulder, scared. Ryan exhaled. They're following him. The agent nodded grimly. We believe Harrison's people see him as a loose end. If they can't bury the case, they'll bury him instead. Olivia's jaw tightened. They weren't just trying to silence her. They were coming for Thomas. She met the agent's gaze. Where is he now? The agent hesitated. That's the problem. He's missing. Olivia's stomach dropped. What? He was supposed to check in with the shelter last night. He never showed up. Ryan ran a hand through his hair. Okay. Nope, I'm out. This is officially too much. But Olivia was already moving. She grabbed her coat. We need to find him before they do. Ryan groaned. Why am I friends with you? She shot him a look. Because you'd be bored otherwise. Ryan muttered. Fair point. The agent watched them, expression unreadable. Then she nodded. Let's move. Thomas was in danger. And Olivia wasn't about to let him disappear again. Not this time. The city felt colder than usual. Or maybe that was just Olivia's nerves. She, Ryan, and the FBI agent moved quickly through the streets, searching. Thomas had vanished. And that meant only one thing. Harrison's people got to him first. Ryan jogged beside her, rubbing his arms. Okay, so just to recap, corrupt billionaires, illegal weapons, dirty cops, and now a missing man. Have I missed anything? Olivia kept walking. Yeah. We still don't know who's helping Harrison from the inside. The FBI agent's face was grim. We have a suspect. Olivia turned to her sharply. Who? The agent hesitated, then pulled a small folder from her bag. Judge Whitmore. Olivia stopped cold. Wait, the judge from Thomas's trial? Ryan's mouth dropped. The one who was all justice and order a few days ago? The agent nodded. We believe he's been working with Harrison for years, covering up arrests, burying evidence. It's how Harrison's empire stayed clean. Olivia clenched her fists. The trial had been rigged from the start. And now, the judge had Thomas. An abandoned warehouse. The moment Olivia saw the building, her gut twisted. This was it. The agent led them through the shadows, keeping low. Intel says Harrison's men have been seen near here. If Thomas is alive, this is where they'd take him. Ryan muttered. I don't like that you said if. Olivia didn't either. They crept around the side, peering through a cracked window. Inside, Thomas, tied to a chair, looking weak but alive. And standing in front of him, Judge Whitmore. Olivia's blood boiled. The judge was talking, but Thomas wasn't answering. A man beside him, one of Harrison's goons, punched him in the stomach. Thomas gasped, doubling over. Olivia felt something snap inside her. She wasn't a cop. She wasn't FBI. But she was done letting them get away with this. She turned to the agent. We need to move. Now. The agent nodded. Stay behind me. Olivia ignored that and ran ahead. Ryan groaned. And now she's charging in. Of course. The second Olivia stepped inside, all eyes turned. Judge Whitmore's expression twisted in shock. You. Olivia's hands curled into fists. Let him go. The judge smirked. You really don't know when to quit, do you? Behind him, Thomas lifted his head, eyes widening. Olivia? Before anyone could react, the FBI agent burst in behind her. Guns down. Hands up. Chaos erupted. The goons reached for their weapons, but the FBI agents stormed in before they had a chance. A gunshot rang out, but it hit nothing but a crate. Within seconds, Harrison's men were on the ground, handcuffed. Judge Whitmore took a step back. You don't understand. The agent grabbed him by the collar. Save it for court. Ryan grinned. That felt good. Olivia ignored him and ran to Thomas, untying the ropes around his wrists. Are you okay? He nodded weakly. I am now. She helped him up, her chest tightening. This time, they couldn't erase him. The fight was over. Harrison was in custody. His men were arrested. And now, so was Judge Whitmore. Justice had won. 1 week later, the courthouse was packed again. This time, Olivia wasn't sitting at the defense table. She was watching from the gallery. Judge Whitmore stood where Thomas had once stood, now the one on trial. Harrison had been exposed. The smuggling operation, the corruption, the cover-ups, it was all out in the open. And Olivia had helped make it happen. The new judge spoke. In light of the evidence presented, this court finds the defendant guilty. A wave of relief washed over her. Ryan nudged her. You did it. She exhaled. We did it. Later that evening, Thomas walked beside her as they left the courthouse. You changed my life, he said. Olivia smiled. You deserved a second chance. He nodded. So do you. What's next? She looked up at the night sky, feeling lighter than she had in weeks. She had spent her life studying the law, believing in justice. Now she knew what it truly meant. She turned to Thomas. Whatever comes next, she said, I'm ready.